Hello everyone, and welcome to another video in my Future Stories Speculation miniseries. Today, I want to talk about a return to the islands of Inazuma, and the stories we could have there after Snezhnaya. I'll be going over potential stories about Raiden Ei, the mysterious Electro Sovereign, the Harbingers, and some other ideas that I have. Now, this video does contain spoilers for the quests listed on screen now, so if you haven't done those, you have been warned. With all that said though, let's get right into the video. As with the previous videos in the series, I'm going to start off by talking about the Electro Archon, Raiden Ei. Before the Inazuma Archon quests, she locked herself away in the plane of Euthymia and let the Shogun puppet rule in her place. After getting through to her though, she abolished the Vision Hunt decree and began ruling alongside the puppet instead. She later abolished the Sakuko decree during her second story quest as well, allowing Inazuma to be open to the rest of Teyvat again. These days, she has adopted a more forward-thinking approach to governance with the Shogun puppet, which I believe could be involved in a story quest with Raiden after Snezhnaya. With the amount of threats that will likely be on the horizon at this time, Ei may need our help in figuring out how to keep Inazuma safe for eternity. While Inazuma is quite a bit far from the mainland of Teyvat and the dangers of that continent, it still borders the Dark Sea, which is full of dangers. Now, the Dark Sea is a term that refers to any location not under the jurisdiction of the 7 Archons of Teyvat. As such, we have technically been to the Dark Sea, as both Enkanomiya and the Golden Apple Archipelago would be counted as parts of it. Khaenri'ah could also be considered part of the Dark Sea, as it never had a god that ruled it. Anyways, we could travel into the Dark Sea alongside Raiden to figure out what lies there and how we could protect Inazuma against the threats it poses. Back during the Cataclysm, creatures from the Dark Sea invaded Inazuma and almost destroyed it, so Ei would definitely want to protect Inazuma from any future attacks. During our journey into the Dark Sea, we would survey the area and eliminate any potential threats we could find. Additionally, traveling into the Dark Sea could allow us to learn more about Celestia and the Archon War. After all, many of the gods who lost the Archon War ended up fleeing into the Dark Sea. Now, during this quest, Ei could realize that the best way to keep Inazuma safe for the future would be to return her power to the Electro Sovereign. Since an Archon only has a fraction of a Sovereign's authority, a fully powered Sovereign would be more powerful than an Archon. As such, the Electro Sovereign would have a far easier time defending Inazuma from any outside threats. There is one problem with Ei returning her authority to the Electro Sovereign though. At the moment, we have no confirmation on who the Electro Sovereign could be. For the other nations we visited, we either have confirmed sovereigns like Apep or Neuvillette, or educated guesses like Dvalin and Azhdaha. For Inazuma though, we haven't really met a character that would fit this spot. Still though, this is a theory channel, and I have a crazy theory for this. I believe that the Electro Sovereign could be none other than Captain Beidou of the Crux Fleet. At first, this may seem a bit unlikely, but there are a few suspicious details about her. Firstly, she managed to defeat the legendary Leviathan known as Hashan by cutting off its head in one clean strike. In fact, this is where she obtained her vision. We don't know if sovereigns can obtain visions, but if Outlanders from beyond Teyvat can, I don't see why a sovereign couldn't. Beidou's constellation, Victor Mare, also resembles a dragon and is quite similar to Neuvillette's constellation, Leviathan Judicator. Also, during Beidou's hangout event, we mentioned the Gnosis to her, something which mortals typically don't know about. However, she didn't ask what they were and didn't even seem confused by the term. Now, I also want to suggest that Hashan itself may have been the Electro Sovereign instead of Beidou. After all, it was described as Leviathan, and Neuvillette's constellation is Leviathan Judicator. Perhaps when Beidou killed Hashan, the power of the Sovereign transferred to her, or perhaps a new Sovereign was born elsewhere. We don't exactly know how the transfer of a Sovereign's power works, but we do know that if one is killed, another one will eventually appear. Whoever the Electro Sovereign ends up being though, they would want to have to protect the people of Inazuma. Beidou would fit here, as she did help fight against the Vision Hunt decree for the people of Inazuma, and even took some refugees with her on her ship. Speaking of her ship, perhaps Beidou could be the one who takes the Traveler Ei into the Dark Sea to investigate what lies out there. Through this journey together, we could uncover the truth of Beidou's identity. Additionally, this would allow Ei to warm up to Beidou and eventually see her as worthy of her power and protecting Inazuma. Now, as with the previous nations, we would see some Harbingers in Inazuma as well. First up, I want to talk about Dottore. Given his area of expertise and how he worked on Scaramouche in the past, he could assist with any complications around the Shogun puppet. Perhaps returning the Electro Sovereign's power could be a bit more complicated because of the puppet, so Dottore may have to help out. He could also be tasked to obtain the blueprints and techniques used to create the Shogun puppet, as that technology could be used against Celestia. Now, for the next Harbinger, we have Arlecchino. With the theory that she could be a very intelligent hilichurl, similar to Caterpillar, I believe she could help with investigations in the Dark Sea. If this theory is true, then she would be able to tell if creatures in the Dark Sea are using disguises to hide their true forms like her. As such, she could protect us against many of the dangers in the Dark Sea that we would otherwise be unaware of. Additionally, she could have a character arc with Ei during these events. After all, Ei and the Shogun puppet were responsible for the death of Signora, so Arlecchino probably wouldn't like them at first. They would start off tense around each other, but as the story progresses, something could happen that allows them to set aside their differences and get to know each other better. Anyways, there is one more Harbinger that I want to talk about, that being Tartaglia. Due to his time in the Abyss as a child, I believe that he would be helpful on the journey to the Dark Sea as well. He would have quite a bit of experience with a variety of strange creatures, and would be able to strategically fight off some of the enemies we encounter. The Dark Sea may also be home to abyssal energies, which Tartaglia could recognize and help the ship avoid the areas where it is most heavily concentrated. Plus, I would love to see Arlecchino and Tartaglia work together. They are both quite nice with the Traveler, so I feel as though they would work together quite well. Now then, let's move on to potential expansions we could get with Inazuma. From what we know in the game now, adding new areas to Inazuma could be a bit tricky. They could just add more islands, but there would need to be lore reasons for this. I actually made a video on how a concept like this would work over a year ago, so if you want to know more, check that out. Instead of getting new islands though, I think we could just go beyond Inazuma into the Dark Sea. Of course, I've mentioned this area a lot throughout this video, and there is just so much potential for new locations out there. We could find ruins relating to gods that lost the Archon War, the Seelie, and other civilizations. The amount of lore we could get out in the Dark Sea would be insane, and it could even introduce all new bits of lore that we haven't really heard of before. We could meet strange creatures, see gods from the Archon War that we haven't heard of, visit the remains of Seelie palaces, and so much more. We could also finally learn about what happened to Mikoshi Chiyo. We know that she fled after her fight with Ei, but her fate was never conclusively given. As such, she could have fled into the Dark Sea and survived all this time. Perhaps during our journey into the Dark Sea, Ei could see her old friend one more time. Anyways, that's pretty much it for my ideas on future stories that take place in Inazuma. If you want to see more videos like this, I recommend my videos on the Ring of Fire, a return to Mondstadt, hints of the Hexen Circle, and a return to Liyue. I also recommend my videos on Inazuma lore, including the 3-7 Wonders videos and Raiden Ei and Makoto. I would love to hear what ideas you all have about future stories at Inazuma in the comments below as well. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Sources and further readings are also in the description if you want to check them out. I hope you all have an amazing day, and I'll see you all in the next video.